I was always fascinated by the idea of a zombie apocalypse. I mean, who wouldn't be? The thought of the world ending in a plague of the undead was simultaneously terrifying and exciting. But I never thought I'd actually experience it. It started with rumors, whispers in the hallways of my high school. People saying that something was happening, that the dead were rising. I didn't believe it at first. It sounded too far-fetched, too ridiculous. But then I saw it with my own eyes. I was walking home from school, lost in my own thoughts, when I saw them. A group of people, or what used to be people, stumbling down the street towards me. They were covered in dirt and blood, their eyes vacant and their mouths hanging open. And they were hungry. I ran, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear their moans behind me, their feet shuffling on the pavement. I didn't know where I was going, I just knew I had to get away from them. I finally found a place to hide, a small convenience store on the corner of the street. I locked the door behind me and tried to catch my breath. It was then that I noticed the blood on my shirt, the scratches on my arms. They had gotten too close. I looked around the store for something to defend myself with. There were a few canned goods and a baseball bat behind the counter. I grabbed the bat and held it tightly, my knuckles turning white. The hours turned into days, and the days turned into weeks. I was trapped in that convenience store, listening to the sound of the undead outside. I tried to sleep, but the moans of the zombies kept me awake. One day, I heard a knock at the door. It was faint, but it was there. I cautiously made my way to the front of the store, my bat at the ready. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking.
"Please, let me in!"
A voice replied. It was a woman's voice, hoarse and desperate. I hesitated for a moment, but then I remembered that I was alone in this world. I couldn't survive on my own forever. I unlocked the door and let her in. She was covered in blood, her clothes torn and her face bruised. She had been through hell, but she was still alive.
"Thank you,"
she said, her voice barely above a whisper. We sat in silence for a while, both of us too afraid to speak. But then she started to talk. She told me about how the zombies had come, how they had taken over the city. She told me about her family, how they had all been killed in the chaos. And then she told me something that made my blood run cold. She told me that the zombies were evolving, that they were getting smarter.
"They're not just mindless monsters anymore,"
she said.
"They're learning."
I didn't want to believe her, but I knew it was true. I had seen it myself. The zombies were getting more aggressive, more cunning. And they were getting closer. We heard a loud bang outside, followed by the sound of shuffling feet. The zombies had found us.
"We have to go,"
I said, my voice shaking. We ran to the back of the store, looking for a way out. We found a small door that led to the alleyway behind the building. We opened it and stepped outside, only to be met with a sea of zombies. We fought our way through the horde of zombies, swinging our weapons wildly and trying to stay alive. But they just kept coming, relentless in their pursuit. It was like they were drawn to the sound of our struggle, their moans growing louder and more frantic as we fought back. We managed to make it a few blocks away from the store, but the zombies were still hot on our heels. I could feel their breath on the back of my neck, their cold fingers grabbing at my clothes. I knew that we couldn't keep this up forever.
"We need to find a place to hide.
I said, panting heavily.
Somewhere they can't get to us."
The woman nodded, and we started to run again, scanning the buildings around us for any sign of safety. That's when we saw a small apartment building with a locked gate and a high fence around it.
"That's our chance,"
the woman said, pointing to the building.
"We can climb the fence and get inside."
We didn't waste any time. We ran to the gate, our hearts pounding with adrenaline, and started to climb the fence. I could hear the zombies moaning and clawing at the fence below us, but we were out of reach. We made it to the top and jumped down on the other side. The courtyard of the apartment building was empty, but it was clear that someone had been here recently. There were cans of food and bottles of water scattered around, as well as a few makeshift weapons, a hammer, a kitchen knife, and a metal pipe. "We're not alone," I said, looking around nervously. "Someone else is here." The woman nodded, and we cautiously made our way to the entrance of the building. We pushed open the door and stepped inside, our weapons at the ready. The inside of the building was dark and silent. There was no sign of anyone else, but it was clear that people had been here recently. There were blankets and pillows on the floor, as well as a few empty food containers. We made our way up the stairs, checking each floor as we went. It was eerily quiet, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. That's when we heard a low growling noise coming from behind one of the doors. We approached it slowly, our weapons at the ready. I pushed the door open, and that's when I saw it. A zombie was crouched in the corner of the room, its eyes glowing in the darkness. It was different from the other zombies we had seen. Its skin was paler, and it moved with a strange grace, like it was aware of its own existence. The woman gasped, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. This was something new, something we had never seen before. We backed away slowly, trying to stay quiet so as not to alert the zombie. But it was too late. It had already spotted us. It stood up and started to move towards us, its eyes fixed on us with an unnatural intensity. We ran, our hearts pounding in our chests. We could hear the zombie's footsteps behind us, its growls getting louder and more frenzied. But we didn't stop until we had made it to the roof of the building. We barricaded the door behind us, using whatever we could find to keep the zombie out. But we knew it was only a matter of time before it found us. We were trapped on the roof, with nowhere else to go.
"We have to get out of here.
The woman said, her voice shaking.
We can't stay here forever."
I nodded, my mind racing with ideas. We had to find a way out. We searched the roof for any possible escape routes, but all we could see were the other rooftops stretching out in all directions. We were trapped. Suddenly, we heard the sound of the zombie pounding on the door. It was getting closer, and we knew we had to act fast. I looked around and spotted a fire escape ladder on the side of the building. "Quick!" I pointed. "We can use that to climb down to the street." The woman nodded, and we sprinted towards the ladder. We climbed down as fast as we could, but the zombie was still right behind us. As we reached the bottom of the ladder, the zombie lunged at us. We dodged out of the way, and it crashed onto the ground, its head smashing into the pavement. For a moment, we thought it was dead, but then it slowly started to get up again. We realized that this was no ordinary zombie. It was stronger and more resilient than the others we had faced. We ran down the street, trying to put as much distance between us and the zombie as possible. But it was still following us, its moans growing louder and more desperate.
"We have to find a way to kill it."
The woman said, gasping for breath. I looked around frantically, trying to think of a way to defeat the zombie. That's when I saw it. A car parked on the side of the road, with a full tank of gas and the keys still in the ignition. "We can use that car to get away." We ran to the car and jumped in, starting the engine and peeling away from the curb. The zombie chased after us, but we were faster. As we drove through the deserted streets, we could see more and more zombies emerging from buildings and alleyways. It was like the whole city had turned into a nightmare. We drove for what felt like hours, swerving around abandoned cars and dodging the zombies that tried to block our path. We were exhausted and terrified, but we didn't give up. Finally, we saw it. A military checkpoint on the outskirts of the city. We sped towards it, honking the horn and shouting for help. The soldiers at the checkpoint rushed towards us, guns at the ready. They pulled us out of the car and asked us what had happened.
We need help.
I said, my voice shaking.
There are zombies everywhere. We need to get out of here.
The soldiers listened to our story and then took us to a safe house where we could rest and recover. We were safe, for now. But I knew that this was just the beginning. The zombie apocalypse was here, and there was no telling how far it would spread. We had to stay alert and stay alive if we wanted to survive.